lesson, you will be able to first discuss the interaction between the supervisor and the Human Resources Department in preparing new employees for success. Second, explain how the supervisor should prepare for the selection process. Third, identify what the supervisor can do to ensure that the most qualified applicant is chosen. Fourth, describe the hiring process and the importance of documentation. And fifth, understand how to conduct an effective onboarding program.
Objective number 1 will discuss the interaction between the supervisors and the Human Resource Department in preparing new employees for success.
Objective number 1 is composed of 6 subtopics. 1. The Human Resources Department and Supervisor Staffing Responsibilities. 2. The Human Resources Advice and Supervisory Decisions. Number 3. Determining the needs for employees. Number 4. Developing job descriptions and job specifications. Number 5. Determining how many employees to hire. Number 6. Soliciting recruitment and selection process. The Human Resources Department and Supervisor Staffing Responsibilities must have to work together to attain the common goal of the organization, and that is to be successful. The Human Resources Management work for the process of employing people, training them, compensating them, developing policies relating to the workplace, and developing strategies to retain employees. The management of human resources is the supervisor's most important activity, and it begins with staffing. Staffing involves the recruitment, selection, placement, orientation, and training of employees. These activities are part of every supervisor's responsibilities. Although in large organizations, staff specialists provide help and support. The supervisory staffing function also includes the evaluation of employees' performance and input regarding how employees will be rewarded for their performance. Now let's discuss the subtopic number 2, the Human Resources Advice and Supervisory Decisions. The Human Resources Management and the supervisor must have the ability to develop close working relationship with each other. In one organization, if there is an employee problems that continually arises, supervisors should consult with the Human Resources Department staff for assistance, information, and advice. Human resource staff members usually prefer to offer suggestions to line supervisors, who in turn must decide whether to accept, alter, or reject those suggestions or recommendations. Whenever a member of the human resources staff has expertise and knowledge directly related to a decision, the supervisor will usually follow the person's advice and recommendations. And when the supervisors conclude that a recommendation of the human resources staff is not feasible, those supervisors should make their own decisions. This time, we will discuss the subtopic number 3, determining the need for employees. Also, one of the responsibilities of the supervisor include to determine how many employees and what skills are needed in their company. Supervisors should become familiar with the departmental jobs and functions and should consult the organizational chart or manual if one is available. Hence, if we put this in our organization, the best example for this is in our school setting. The highest person in authority in the school setting is the principal or the school head. Since they supervises his or her teachers, the principal or school head determine if there is a need for teachers or extra teachers in his or her school. They will make reports and pass it to their higher-ups, and those higher-ups will acknowledge and recognize it. After determining the need for employee, the next step is to develop appropriate job description and job specifications. So why do we need to develop appropriate job description and job specifications? Because job description and job specification tells the right person to hire in the position. The goal of job description and job specification is to look for the right person to work on the available position. Usually, job description and job specification are combined into one document. After making job description and job specification, The supervisor's next job is to determine how many employees to hire. Supervisors in business world seldom have to hire large numbers of employees at the same time. Large-scale hiring usually occurs when a new department is created or when major expansion takes place. Normally, a supervisor must hire a replacement when a regular employee leaves the department for reasons such as promotion, transfer, resignation, dismissal, or retirement. This also happened in the Department of Education. There will be a replacement to the vacant item when the teacher leaves for a reason such as he or she is promoted, transferred, resigned, or the teacher retired. Now for the last topic in objective number 1, let's talk about the soliciting recruitment and selection assistance. Let's define recruitment and selection first.
Recruitment is the process of attracting qualified applicants for a job role. Selection is the process of identifying and selecting the right candidate for that job. The Human Resources Department staff conducts preliminary interview to whether the applicants are matched with the requirements of the position. Also conduct reference check of the applicant's employment and background. Those qualified applicants will be referred to the supervisors. In the process of recruitment in the DepEd, all teacher applicants must go through the RQA or the Registry of Qualified Applicants. We are done with objective number 1. Let's proceed to objective number 2.
Objective number 2 will explain how the supervisor should prepare for the selection process.
Reviewing applicants' background. Number 3, the consequences of failing to check adequately. Fourth and the last topic will be preparing key questions. Let's begin with number 1, understanding the influence of equal employment opportunity laws. Because the purpose of the selection process is to choose the most qualified person to fill the needs of the organization, supervisors with the help of the HR must plan and prepare. Supervisors should always review the Equal Employment Opportunity or the EEO laws. What is Equal Employment Opportunity Law? EEO is an employment practice where employers do not engage in employment activities that are prohibited by law. It is illegal for employers to discriminate against applicants on the basis of race, age, color, sex, religion, or national origin of the applicant. For interviewing a job applicant, the supervisor should review all background information. By studying whatever is available, the supervisor can develop in advance a mental impression of the job applicant's general qualifications. The application will supply information concerning the applicant's schooling, experience, and other relevant items. Also, reference provides additional information about the applicant. What if the supervisor forgot to check all necessary background? There will be a consequences in failing to check adequately. Many organizations have been charged with negligently hiring employees who later commit crimes. Some cases would involve homicide, robbery, and deviant behavior. Surprisingly, you can be held liable if you knew that person you were hiring was a potential risk to others. That's why supervisors should check thoroughly the necessary background and reference of the applicants and prepare key questions prior to interview. So how to prepare key questions? The supervisor should develop a list of key questions which may include directive and non-directive components. Questions that are vital to the selection decision and are job related. Supervisor should identify the skills, knowledge, abilities, and personal attributes of the applicants. This will help to ensure that you can pick the right one in the job. That would be all for objective number 1 and objective number 2. Thank you and bye-bye.
Objective 3. Identify what supervisors can do to ensure that the most qualified applicant is chosen. After the Human Resources Department has screened and selected qualified applicants for a job opening, a departmental supervisor normally interviews each candidate before any decision is made. Regardless of who makes the final hiring decision, however, selection criteria must be developed.
The
Selection criteria are the factors used to differentiate applicants. Education, knowledge, experience, test scores, application forms, background investigations, and interpersonal skills often serve as selection criteria. Selection is the process of screening applicants in order to choose the best person for a job. Once job applicants have been located, the next step is to gather information that will help determine who should be hired.
For supervisors, the most frequently used selection criterion and often the most important part of the selection process is the employee selection interview. Here's the figure 9.3.
Figure 9.3. Setting the stage of an effective employment interview. Set the stage, HR department, and the supervisor. Goals of the applicant, the interviewee. 1. Obtain information about the job. 2. Obtain information about the organization. 3. Ascertain how the opening vacancy occurred. 4. Determine whether the job matches my needs. 5. Determine whether I want the job. 6. Communicate important information about myself. 7. Favorably impress the employer, the interviewer. Goals of the employer, the interviewer. 1. Involve those who will be working closely with the applicant to provide input into the selection process. 2. Serve as a public relations tool by promoting the organization. 3. Gather information about the applicant. 4. Assess how well the applicant's qualifications match the job requirements. 5. Determine whether the applicant will fit well with the organization and other employees. 6. Differentiate among the applications. 7. Hire the applicant with the most potential.
There are basic approaches to interviewing.
There are basic approaches to interviewing. First, the directive interview. Directive interview, the interviewer guides the discussion with a predetermined outline and objectives in mind. This approach is sometimes called a pattern or structured interview. An outline helps the interviewer ask specific questions to cover each topic on which information is wanted. Second, the non-directive interview. Non-directive interview is to encourage interviewees to talk freely and in depth. The applicant has freedom to determine the course of the discussion. Rather than asking specific questions, the supervisor may stimulate the discussion by asking broad, open-minded questions such as, "Tell me about your work in the computer field." Third, blending directive and non-directive approaches. In employee selection interviews, the directive approach is used most often because supervisors find it convenient to obtain information by asking the same direct questions of all applicants. At times, however, supervisors should strive to blend directive and non-directive techniques to obtain additional information that might help them reach a decision. Often, interviewers use situational questions to assess what the applicant would do in a certain situation.
Conducting the selection interview, remember, the purpose of the selection interview is to collect information and arrive at a decision concerning the job applicant. Guidelines for the selection interview are found in the accompanying supervisory tips. Here's the supervisory tips.
Supervisory tips. Supervisory guidelines for conducting an employee interview. 1. Carefully review the application, the applicant's resume, and other background information about the job candidate. 2. Determine the objectives and the form of interview to be conducted, example, directive or non-directive. Develop specific questions to ask. 3. Find a quiet, private place to hold the interview where interruptions will not occur. 4. After a cordial warm-up, explain the nature of the job and its requirements. Do not attempt to oversell the job or what is needed. 5. Ask directive questions to verify information and qualifications on the application as well as to fill in any gaps that may be significant to the hiring decision. 6. Ask the candidate to state what he or she could most contribute to the job in question. Ask the applicant to provide examples of previous job situations that might be relevant. 7. Encourage the candidate to speak freely and to ask as many questions as necessary. 8. Take notes of the candidate's statements and comments that are most pertinent to meeting the requirements of the job. 9. Avoid judging the candidate's suitability until the interview is completed. Be aware of possible biases and stereotypes that could unfairly influence the hiring decision. 10. Close the interview positively by thanking the candidate and indicating when a hiring decision will be made. Figure 9.4. A post-interview evaluation form.
Objective 4. Describing the hiring decision and the importance of documentation.
Making hiring decision. The decision to hire can be challenging when the supervisor has interviewed several applicants and all appear qualified for the job. There are no definite guidelines a supervisor can use to select the best suited individual. At times, information from the applications, tests, and interviews indicate which applicants should be hired. At this point, supervisory judgment and experience come into play. The supervisor must select employees who are most likely to contribute to good departmental performance. The supervisor may consult with members of the human resources staff for their evaluations, but in the final analysis, it should be the supervisor's responsibility to choose. Involving employees in the hiring decision. The degree to which employees are involved in the selection process differs among organizations. Generally, subordinates, peers, or work team members meet with the applicant and give their impression to the ultimate decision maker. Members of employee work teams, for example, are generally most knowledgeable about job responsibilities and challenges. They can offer valuable insight into the employee selection process. Documenting the hiring decision. Documentation is necessary to ensure that a supervisor's decision to accept or reject an applicant is based on job-related factors and is not discriminatory. At times, a supervisor's hiring decision will be challenged. The supervisor must be able to justify the decision or risk its reversal by higher-level managers.
Objective 5. Understand how to conduct an effective onboarding program. Bringing the new employees on board. According to author Carol Fleck, some organizations use the term orientation and onboarding interchangeably, but there is a difference. When we say orientation, it is a process designed to help new employees become acquainted with organizations and understand the organization's expectations.
identify all the things that a new employee ought to know. The supervisor should ask the question, to do this job well, what does a new employee need to know? Without some type of checklist, the supervisor is apt to skip some important items. Checklists can also be used to help new employees understand the company and its objectives and to build a more positive attitude toward the supervisor, fellow employees, and the company. Key number 2, discussing the organization. In most firms, the Human Resources Department provides booklets that give general information about the firm, including benefits, policies, and procedures. This is one way the company's vision for the future, corporate philosophy, market and product development, management styles, and so forth may be shared. Employees should receive an explanation of what they can expect from the organization. Realistic organization and job reviews should clarify employee expectations. The key is that the information must be accurate and that all employees must receive the same information. But do you know, a common mistake supervisors make when onboarding new employees is giving them too much information on the first day. Presenting too many items in the very short time may result in information overload. New employees are unlikely to remember many details presented in the first 2 hours of the first day. Key number 3, being a supportive. The attitudes and behaviors of the supervisor are more important than the actual techniques used to orient new employees. When a supervisor conveys sincerity in trying to make the transition period a pleasurable experience and tells new employees that they should not hesitate to ask questions, it will smooth the early days on the job. Even when the Human Resources Department provides formal orientation, it remains the supervisor's responsibility to help each new person quickly become an accepted member of the departmental work team and a contributing, productive employee. Key number 4, setting the stage. Supervisory responsibility goes beyond making sure that the employee has received a handbook and department work rules. The supervisor should inform the other employees that someone new is joining the group and should let them know something positive about the new person. Imagine how difficult it would be for a person to be received into the work group if the employees had been told we had to hire this person. The supervisor needs to set the stage for the new employee's arrival so that the new employee is socialized properly into the work group. Organizations that use work teams believe in spreading authority, responsibility, and accountability throughout the organization. Over time, effective teams develop open communication and relationships. New employees need to understand the purpose and goals of the work group, why the job is important, and where the job fits in. They also need to understand the roles various team members fulfill. Supervisors must make certain that members of the work team understand that it is their responsibility to communicate and contribute to this understanding. Part of the onboarding process is to shape positively the new employee's behavior. Remember, effective work team members model positive norms for the new employee. Lastly, mentoring. It is the process of having a more experienced person provide guidance, coaching, or counseling to a less experienced person. Broadly defined, the mentor teaches the tricks of the trade, gives the new employee all the responsibility he or she can handle. The ultimate question for the new employee is, how do I attach myself to a role model who will guide my career? Professor Kathy Cram suggests putting all your eggs in one basket is a mistake. I think people ought to think in terms of multiple mentors instead of just one. Peers can be an excellent source of mentorship. To expand on the idea of multiple mentors can be identified for the following purposes: a mentor for life, a mentor for the season, and a mentor for a specific reason.
But the big question is, should supervisors mentor?
Yes, they should mentor when they feel comfortable doing so. Remember, mentoring should be looked upon as one way to smooth the transition of new employees into the organization and develop them into productive employees. And that is all for Chapter 9.
Success is not the key to happiness, but happiness is the key to success.
If you love what you are doing, you will be successful.
Once again, this is Christine J. Amoguis. I am Pegarido,
And I am Lory Ann Acedo.
Stay safe.